What makes a good story? Most would say a beginning, a middle, and an end, in that order. And to a certain extent they are right. But there are times when that is not quite the case. Today we're going to be looking at prime examples of when the beginning, middle, and end formula can be flipped, and we will see how that influences the story. Throughout the history of modern cinema, it has been fairly common for directors to make narrative use of nonlinear storytelling. Movies such as Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Pulp Fiction, and Memento tell their story out of sequential order for the sake of giving the audience either necessary knowledge for future scenes or keeping them in the dark on some information to increase its significance. Our first example, Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, begins with the end, even though the audience doesn't realize it. Throughout the middle of the movie, we are taken through a sequence which technically takes place in Joel's memory. However, that doesn't mean it's in the past. This sequence is meant to give us exposition, even though it isn't at the beginning of the movie. The story is told in a way so that we can see the memories that Joel made with Clementine as he loses them. This makes the final scene much more impactful than it was at the beginning of the movie, because the audience now has a connection to the characters, and the characters don't recognize each other. Pulp Fiction, at first glance, is 3 different stories told in a completely random order. However, once you start to look deeper, there are a reason for every scene's placement in the movie. The 2 main characters of what most consider to be the primary storyline go through their inciting incident right at the beginning of Act 1, as it should be. After this scene, we take a break from these 2 to go through other storylines, and by the end of the movie, we come back to those 2 to see precisely how they were affected by the inciting incident in Act 1. After the inciting incident, Jules decides to take the moral high road, but Vincent continues doing his job, and they decide this during the climax. But before this ever happens, we see the result of Vincent's choice before we see him make it, because he is the antagonist in another story. This is just one example of nonlinear storytelling in the movie, but the shock factor it produces justifies the technique. So a linear story is one told from beginning to end, and a nonlinear story mixes those around. But what about a reverse linear story that's told from end to beginning? In 2000, movie director Christopher Nolan came out with the neo-noir thriller Memento. This movie starts like Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, with the end. But the scene unfolds in reverse. Then there is a transition to another black and white scene, which is the chronological beginning of the film. The film then begins a cycle of cutting between chronological black and white scenes to scenes in color that are in reverse chronological order that start from the end. These scenes end in the same spot that the last scene from the same sequence would begin to signify the connection between the 2 scenes. Eventually, at the end of the movie, 2 scenes meet in color in black and white, and we figure out how the 2 stories are connected. So what? How does this technique enhance the story in any way for the audience? Let's take a look at the actual content of the movie. Leonard, a man with amnesia, is trying to find and kill the man who raped and killed his wife. Throughout the movie, he often refers to his condition when he's talking to someone he doesn't recognize, which is every time he talks to someone. At the beginning of a scene, Leonard has no idea what is going on or why he is doing the things he's doing. That is the genius of the way the story is told. Through telling the last half of the movie in reverse, the audience is left in just as much confusion as the main character, wondering what's going to happen in this scene and how he's going to get out of it. This puts the audience right into Leonard's shoes and gives us the thrill of not knowing what happened before. Telling the story in reverse could have easily been used as a marketing gimmick by Nolan, but he used this technique specifically to fit the design of this story. And the unique storyline that the movie follows makes it one of the best examples of linear storytelling.